Hey y'all, I'm Catherine with Evergreen Era Film and Photo. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about 5 awesome locations on the Blue Ridge Parkway in Western North Carolina that you can choose from for your small wedding or elopement. Let's jump in. If you didn't know, the Blue Ridge Parkway is a mountain road that spans 469 miles from Western North Carolina all the way up into Virginia and ends right at the beginning of Shenandoah National Park. Since I'm a Western North Carolina local, I know the Western North Carolina section of the Blue Ridge Parkway best, and that's where all the spots I'm going to be talking about today are located. And if you're a nature lover like me, it's also a really incredible place to have your elopement. I believe in my brand and in my work that there is no better place to celebrate your relationship and your love for one another than in the wilderness. Be sure to stay tuned because at the end I'll share a few very important tips that you need to know if you're trying to get married along the Blue Ridge Parkway. Let's go. Location number 1 is Chesto of You. Chesto of You is near Linville, North Carolina, and it's this beautiful little rock overlook that you walk out to. It has a 180-degree view of the mountains and enough space for a few family members and friends and loved ones to be there present with you for your ceremony. It's also overlooking the Linville Gorge, which in my opinion is one of the most cool places in Western North Carolina. There's a lot of exposed rock and really kind of jagged mountaintops that make it really beautiful. A lot of the locations I suggest I really like because they are a short walk away from the main road, because having a ceremony right on the road would be really loud and distracting, and so a lot of these spots have just a short walk right out to the location so you can have your ceremony in a little bit quieter of a space. It also allows for a little bit of privacy so tons of cars aren't driving up and stopping right in the middle of your ceremony. Chesto of You is also close to a lot of other places to explore and enjoy on your elopement day. There is Linville Falls and the Linville Gorge right there beside Chesto of You, so you have a lot of places to explore and experience mountaintops and waterfalls on your elopement day. It's a traditional overlook where you just kind of pull off the side of the road and have this mountain view. But what's special about it is you can cross the road. There's more of a mountain view on that side, but then it goes uphill to some craggy rock areas that you can hike up into and explore. And then you can hike through a little field of you can hike through a little tunnel of rhododendron and through the forest for a bit, and you come out at a big open grassy field, so you also get a lot of different styles of locations in one spot. If you have family members that really can't walk uphill or go very far, you will have to stay near the road, so that's kind of a negative. But if it's just you as a couple and you're wanting something short and sweet, or maybe you have family members who can walk a little bit of a ways, then this is a great option to have a lot of different types of scenery all in one spot. It's also one of the closest overlooks once you get on the parkway near Blowing Rock or Boone, North Carolina. And so if you're trying to be close to town and don't want to go out very far, then this is a really great spot. Coffee break. The third place I want to list is Julian Price Lake Park. This is a beautiful lake south of Boone, right on the parkway. This is one of the only spots along the Blue Ridge Parkway that I know that has a lake right there and has activities for you to do literally right on the parkway. So not only is there a campground right there on the lake and on the other side of the lake, but there's trails that lead right out of the campground. You can walk around the lake on that trail and find a nice spot for a ceremony wherever feels good. You can also rent kayaks there and get out on the water. So it's just a really beautiful space where everything you need is kind of right in that one area. Next on my list is Beacon Heights. This place is a really special place to me. I spent a lot of time here in college as well. It is a bit of a drive from downtown Boone. It's closer to Grandfather Mountain area. So if you're wanting to be close to a town in itself, it might not be the best option, but if you're willing to drive a bit, it's a really, really lovely spot that only requires a short hike. I think it's less than a mile out and back. But what's really cool about it is you hike out onto this beautiful open rock face. There are 2 sections that you can choose from if the parkway gives permits for both of those spots, and you have a view of the mountains from both areas. It's beautiful for sunrise and sunset. And there's also some forest woody areas along the way and near the top that you can sneak off into and have a ceremony if you didn't want to be out on the rock face itself. So there's a lot of different scenery in that area as well. If you have family and friends who really can't hike and need more accessible locations, this won't be the best option for you. But if you have family who can hike, or if you're eloping just you as a couple, then this is a really, really awesome option for couples who want to hike a little but don't want to hike super far. Then we've got Craggy Gardens. Craggy Gardens is north of Asheville, about 30 minutes. And the Craggy Gardens area can be a little bit confusing for most people. So Craggy Gardens is a whole area kind of around the Blue Ridge Parkway. There is an area specifically called Craggy Gardens, which is a trail out to a bigger, open, wider field with a view out to the mountains on one side. But then there's also a trail further up north on the parkway called Craggy Pinnacle, which takes you to a pinnacle point of a mountain nearby with a rock boundary at the top that gives you 360 views of the area. This location has become very popular, and the Blue Ridge Parkway no longer gives permits for Craggy Pinnacle. One of the reasons that this is the case is because a lot of people unfortunately go outside of the rock wall boundary when there are signs telling you to please not do that because there is rare sensitive plant life that lives on those rocks, and stepping on them will kill those plants. Unfortunately, people continue to do that, but that also affects couples wanting to elope. So if you decide to go up to the pinnacle for some photos, if your photographer doesn't know you can't go out on the rocks, then educate them. If you're a photographer or videographer and you didn't know that, I hope you follow those regulations now. But you cannot have your ceremony up on Craggy Pinnacle. I do think at this time the parkway is allowing permits for ceremonies at Craggy Gardens, which is again a different section, just right there in the same area but lower down. And so this whole area is just really cool to explore and enjoy. There's just a lot of craggy? I don't know if that's where that name came from, but really cool, funky looking trees, a lot of rhododendron, and a lot of open space. But be aware that it is popular, and because it's so close to the city of Asheville, there's just a lot of people there all the time. And so even if you're looking at sunset, I usually find that there are more people there at sunset than maybe even in the middle of the day. But if I were working with a couple and they wanted to get married in that area, I would highly suggest sunrise, because you are going to get most of that place to yourself, and that is the goal. So you have just a really special, private as possible elopement experience. 2 more options. The next option, again, is close to Asheville, but is actually south of Asheville on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and this is called Buck Spring Gap. Buck Spring Gap is really close to Mount Pisgah Inn and the Mount Pisgah Campground and Mount Pisgah Hike, literally Mount Pisgah the mountain. There are actually a few places for a ceremony here, so I've had a couple have their ceremony literally right there in the more open grassy section right off the parking lot because they had grandparents who couldn't move very far at all. And so that's an option for a ceremony. And then you can also walk out a ways a bit if everyone's able, and you can do it there with the 2 little benches and the open view, or you could also have it like back in the field right there if you wanted to. So there's a few options for ceremonies there, but this is a really great spot for larger groups. There's enough parking in the parking area for multiple cars, so you don't have to worry about that. And there's enough space really to house everyone if you're on the higher side of guest count. I know the parkway has limitations on how many people can attend ceremonies on the Blue Ridge Parkway, but we'll get to that. Because you have the Mount Pisgah Inn nearby, you have options for meals and the dining room with the big glass windows overlooking the view. You have places for family members to stay if you wanted to be close by. You could stay in the campground that's right there as well, and there are multiple trails, and you're kind of right in the middle of all the good stuff. on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So if you wanted to go explore different areas on your elopement day, you could do that as well. The last place I have listed is called the Lump Overlook. You've probably never heard of this spot before. It's pretty far north of Boone on the Blue Ridge Parkway, but the cool thing about being that far away from most of what people know is that you're likely going to have not many people there for your elopement, and so there'll be a little bit more privacy. The Lump Overlook is kind of like what it sounds. If you've ever heard of Max Patch, it's similar to that, but it doesn't have as intense of 360 views, but it really gives you that same hill meadow vibe with some views of mountains as well. Now I want to make it clear that these are all easily, quickly accessible locations on the Blue Ridge Parkway for ceremonies. If there are couples out there who are looking to get off the beaten path, hike further into certain locations, then I am down for that. You're likely to have less people at the elopement location if you're willing to hike in further, but I know if you're wanting to include family in your elopement day and during your ceremony, then we need to find places that are accessible. And what's cool about the Blue Ridge Parkway is that lots of places are accessible. The whole point of that is having quick and beautiful views of the mountains. One thing I like to tell people is they don't have to choose between having an elopement day that includes just them and also includes some family and friends. So if you want to have a ceremony with loved ones, you can do that, but you can also have some time where we go on a longer hike or go exploring some waterfalls and doing some other things that family members might not be interested in or able to do it all. So you get that solo couple time to really just enjoy each other on the day you get married. Okay, so you made it to the end. I wanted to throw in a few extra tips to know about eloping on the Blue Ridge Parkway and what you'll need in order to mentally prepare to have an elopement day that is following the rules, but is also everything you want. First thing to note is the parkway does close in the winter. It is not open year round, and that's because it's at such a high elevation in places that the roads are just too dicey to be driving on. Some sections of the parkway at lower elevations might be open, but a lot of the really good view spots are on locations that typically close in the winter. The Blue Ridge Parkway does have a few restrictions on their wedding permits and what goes along with that. So first thing, yes, you will need a permit no matter what to have a wedding ceremony on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So what you need to do is you need to go to their website, I'll link it below, and read all the regulations and rules, follow the instructions, and apply for a permit. Right now, I think it's total $100 for you to apply. Compared to a venue, I mean, wow, you can't even compare the cost. They also do not give any permits out for federal holidays and federal holiday weekends. So don't plan your elopement on the Blue Ridge Parkway during any of those times, as well as the entire month of October. But you likely can still go hiking and take photos and videos on the Blue Ridge Parkway. You just can't have a ceremony, since a ceremony takes up a lot of time and particular space all at once. I think that's really the main reason, is you're reserving a space for a longer period of time than just traditional tourists and hikers are. Another thing to note is that live florals are not allowed on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and this is a good thing because live florals and plants can introduce invasive species to the area, and invasive species can possibly kill off local native plants, and what we're trying to do and what they're trying to do is protect those for everyone's enjoyment and keep the area as natural and protected as possible. Also, I mentioned earlier that there are limits on the size of people that can attend your elopement on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and that limit is 25 people or less. I think that includes everyone, so your photographer, your videographer, your officiant, both of you and the couple, and all your guests, 25 people or less. Just remember, this is not a fully comprehensive list. There are lots of beautiful locations along the Blue Ridge Parkway. This is just a quick and easy list of ideas for you. If you want more help planning your Blue Ridge Parkway elopement, then feel free to reach out. If you want some other ideas of maybe some cool hiking spots or other places in the area to elope other than the Blue Ridge Parkway, I'm still your girl. I hope this was really helpful for y'all. So like and subscribe to my channel. I'm so stoked that you're here. See you in the next video.